Uh, hello, everyone. I see we have a lot of you over on Instagram. Sorry, I'm live streaming to Instagram and YouTube right now, so I'm kind of all over the place. And I'm trying to find my little thing here. I haven't used StreamYard in a while. It's been a hot minute. Hi, I see you guys are talking about some books here. I love Mark of the Lion. I'm on book two, and I love book one. I devoured book one. It was fantastic. I am stuck on book two. I think I just love the history of book one, and book two is a little harder for me, but I'm going to go back to it. I have it in paperback. Someone gave it to me, and I have it on audiobook too. So I kind of go in between the two. It's pretty great here. I'm seeing some of your comments come in on Instagram as well. Oh, it's okay. I see you're traveling. That is awesome. I'm so excited that you got to join, and it's quite late, but I'm glad you stopped in to say hi. Um, I have not read Air of Secrets by Marilyn Hayes. I'm going to put that one on my list. So excited. Hi, everybody. Hello. Okay, I'm so excited for this. If you aren't aware, I'm doing a live stream every other week while we're reading the Cities of Smoke and Starlight, which is on the screen here. We're doing a read along because book three is going to come out really soon. And once I start my little PowerPoint here, I'm not technologically advanced in many ways, but I was able to figure out how to put like a PowerPoint up here, and we have some things going on, but we will go ahead and get started because I think a lot of us are here already, and I want to stop wasting your time because we have a lot to do today. Lots of questions have been asked, but if you have a question you want to ask during the live stream, if you're on Instagram specifically, if you're on YouTube, it doesn't matter. You can post it in the chat there. I'll be able to see it. But on Instagram, I don't have a question box because I'm streaming through StreamYard. And so if you would just put a green check mark before your question, I will try to get to it at the end of the live. However, if you are a part of my Discord and you're doing the read along with us, I have your questions. And I think I had about almost 30 submitted, so which is fantastic. I'm so excited, but that's a lot. So I'm going to get to all of those. I will try to get to extra ones at the end, but this will also be recorded. And so if you have other questions and would like to join our Discord, all that stuff is in my bio on Instagram. You can just go to my website as well. I believe you can get there through there if you're on YouTube right now. But that is, I think, the only housekeeping stuff. I do have my coffee. Because I haven't had my second coffee of the day quite yet. But we're going to go ahead and get started with, oh, there we go. For those of you who are joining who haven't read my books and don't know what it's about, it's a 3-book series currently. The third book is about to come out in September, which is why we're doing this whole read along to begin with, is to get excited about it. But it is perfect for those who love Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, wanted to soar with Jim Hawkins in Treasure Planet, and wished Rogue One had a romantic hate-to-love subplot. I am aware that Andor kind of ruins my marketing with the Rogue One. I haven't watched Andor, but I do know what the big plot twist is at the end, and I'm going to have to go and change a bunch of things and kind of redirect my marketing in a different direction. But I still keep it on there because it does grab people's eye because I love Rogue One. It's the best Disney Star Wars for sure. We have a YouTube comment here. I actually have this one on my shelf. The reason I'm pointing this out, I have it on my shelf. I want to read it. It's on my TBR for sure. Harbinger series by Jeff Wheeler. Anyway, my book is available in all formats: ebook, paperback, hardcover, audiobook. You can also, if you're on YouTube right now, you can actually listen to my book on YouTube. Both books, I have them up there for free. So feel free to listen there, get a little bit of a, hey, I like it or not, and then buy it, or you can listen to it all on YouTube. It does not matter to me. Once again, thank you so much for joining, everybody. We are about to start my questions. So if you joined Discord and you submitted questions, you will get them answered today. If you are just joining us and you haven't submitted a question and would like to ask a question, that's totally fine. Just put it in the comments and put a green check mark at the beginning because I'm doing through StreamYard here, it's gonna be kind of difficult. It doesn't have a question box like the usual Instagram live does. So I'm sorry for that, but I'm trying this out and see if I like it. We're gonna go with it. But like I said before, about 30 questions to get through today. So I'm gonna go through and get as many as I can. through here. Oh, the first couple ones are basically the character-driven ones, and I love these because I wanted to add more pictures, but I decided to restrain myself because I didn't want this to last like hours. I'm aiming for about like 30, 45 minutes of a live, to be honest. But who or what characters inspired, or who or what inspired your characters? Pinterest did, and that's a really lame answer, I know that. Pinterest really kind of inspired my characters. There was a specific Pinterest pin I found when I was trying to figure out ideas for this book and Case and Hallie. It was just these two characters and they're arguing in the picture. It's an art style, kind of like anime. Wasn't quite anime, but it's kind of like that. They were arguing. It's somebody else's character sheet, I think. But I was like, oh my word, those are my characters. And so they were directly inspired by that. I have so many Pinterest boards, a character ideas board that I usually go to find characters and ideas for them. I do have a couple characters. I'll talk about Harlan in a second. That one was inspired by something else, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But was there any character you had a difficult time writing? Not really. Jove was difficult to write in book 2 because of the arc he was on. And if you've read book 2, you know why it was probably difficult. Yeah, that was probably difficult. Clara is the easiest to write. She was more flavor text in book 2 to kind of deepen Jove's point of view. And I really enjoyed writing your perspective. It was just so wonderful. And I just loved being in her head. And I relate a lot to Clara in a bunch of different ways. So I think that was probably why it was easier, but I don't really have difficulty writing any of the characters in my series. I really enjoy each of them in different ways and for different reasons. Do you like Case's father as a character? As a reader, no. He is a horrible, horrible person. But as a writer, I really enjoyed like delving into his backstory and figuring out why he is the way he is. And so that was really not exciting. Exciting is not the right word, but I can't think of the word. Exciting is the only word I'm going to think of right now, but it's not the right word I'm looking for. It was really intriguing, I guess. Maybe that's the word I was looking for. Yeah. But he was inspired. This is why I'm getting to this. He was inspired by Denethor from the Steward of Gondor and Lord of the Rings, like specifically the movie character. He's Faramir and Boromir's father, who is kind of holding the throne down while Aragorn does his thing, essentially. And he is an awful human being. Combined with him and Emily Gilmore from Gilmore Girls, but it's like Emily Gilmore on like steroids, and that's who Harlan is, and that's kind of what I imagine in my head as Harlan. Was Celeste's character inspired by anyone in particular? No, a lot of my characters just pop in my head, and that's really I feel like a lame answer for some people, but that's just what it is. I don't know. They pop in my head, and then I kind of discover more about them as I write the series and as I do some like character work to kind of prep myself to actually write. Do you like Case or Hallie better? I can't choose. They're like choosing between my children. I love writing Case a lot more, I think. His head space is easier to get into because he's very like it's easy to write angry, bitter characters for me. I don't know why. I don't know what that says about me. But Hallie is super fun to write as well because she's really nerdy in a lot of different ways. And I also relate to that. So I don't know if I could choose between them. I think I would be friends with Hallie in real life, but I don't know. I probably wouldn't be friends with Case, but maybe I would. Who knows? So I don't know if I could choose necessarily based on that. But as a writer, it depends on who I'm writing at that time, whether or not I like them better. Do I ever base a character's personality or looks off people in real life or celebrities? Not really. What I do is I go to Pinterest and I have, like I said, they come fully formed, like what they look like in my mind usually. And I type in like female, blonde, blue eyes, fantasy or something like that, or some kind of other descriptor. And I go through all the Pinterest pins it gives me and figure out which one looks best to what's in my, or closest to what's in my head. And then if it's like a model or an actor or an actress or something, I then find their name and then research them and I use those for my posts. So now it's like a reverse way. So no, but I eventually use them. Case in my head was when I did my research like that, Colin or Hook from Once Upon a Time came up, and Han Solo, and I was like, great, that's what he looks like. That's kind of what I'm imagining in my head, and that's kind of what his character is too. So that was really fun. As you're reading through this again, are there any changes you'd make or things you'd elaborate on? Yes. Besides like little like authory things like, oh, I would have said that different. I would totally reword that and write it this way instead. There is one specific thing that happens in book 3 that I'm kicking myself for not foreshadowing better in book 1, but I just kind of go with it. I don't really plan, and so it's on me. But I tried to write it in such a way in book 3 that you hopefully remember this part from book 1, even though there's like a short sentence, maybe not even a full sentence I could add to book 1 to make a payoff for something super epic in book 3. And I wish I had like plans it out at this point, because it's such a good detail I could have added. So that's something I would change. I would add those in. So when I write my next series, I kind of want to write or have the first draft of the entire series done so I can foreshadow things like that. That would be really cool. So I still made it work, but it was a slight missed opportunity. My favorite chapter title in the sections we read these last 2 weeks, chapters 1 through 15, I had 2. The Best Stars Blasted Pilot, which I believe is chapter 1's title. And then I think it's chapter 7. It's a belligerent bowl of boiled-brained beef. I cannot say that. I love it. It's an alliteration. I believe it's a Shakespearean insult as well. And so I was able to combine all of that together to make it. It just makes me very happy. How did you create the world and city names? I think I use a lot of fantasynamegenerators.com. If you don't know fantasynamegenerators.com, it'll change your life. I introduced my sister, who is also a writer, to it, and she was like, I didn't know this existed. So a lot of times I go to fantasynamegenerators.com and have so many lists of different real world and fantasy world type things. If you haven't looked at it, definitely go check it out. But I usually take it from there and then I tweak it to kind of fit my story more. So the Victorian names list on there, I used a lot for people names, and I would take it and I would sci-fi it. So like Job was originally Job, like the character from the Bible, but to make it more sci-fi, I added the VE at the end. So it felt more sci-fi. So I did a lot of things with the world as well. Same thing with, I specifically remember Kaivenna. I really wanted it to sound European. And I also would love to visit Austria one day. It's one of my like bucket list items because I love the sound of music. And so I took Vienna and I made it more sci-fi. And so that's why it became Kaivenna. And that's why it's kind of pronounced that way. Instead of Kivana or something like that, I wanted Kaivenna because it sounded more European in my mind. So that's how I kind of created it. The world building, how did I come up with it? Several different things. I wanted it to be on a different planet because originally it was a space opera where the characters were soaring through the stars, but I decided to bring in one of my other story ideas, which was, what if the sun exploded? What if the sun was ending? What if the scientists got it wrong? They're predicting, I don't remember what their prediction is right now, but like they're predicting that the sun will explode and become a black hole eventually. And so what if that actually happened? What were those people doing in those last days? And in my story, they're like underground because it's unlivable on the surface, and they create life ships to giant spaceships to get away from the sun. And that's how they end up on Yalvara. And so because of that, they have this rich history there, which is how First Earth is like a huge part of these people's lives, because like it was a huge event. They came from somewhere else. And the other people on Yalvara, besides the Alps, the Searles and the Rubicans, they are also from different planets, Earth-like planets in the universe, but they also ended up on the planet. So it's four very different people trying to get along, and what does that look like over time? And that's kind of what I've been exploring. My thought process when I started plotting these books was I started with a line of Case and Hallie, but her name was Rav at the time. So Rav and Case were soaring through the stars trying to steal time. And it's pretty much nothing like that anymore. So that's how it started. I used the snowflake method. So it starts really small with that one plot line, and I just kind of built out and out. And I started adding other story ideas from different things I've wanted to write, like the sun thing. And eventually it turned into Cities of Smoke and Starlight and the whole series. Have I ever done translation work? No, I love when I love linguistics though. I took history of the English language and modern English language in college. And I love linguistics. If I were to go back and get my master's degree, I would get a linguistics degree. Don't know what I would use it for, but I love diagramming sentences. I'm one of those people who would just like in their spare time diagram sentences. And I have done that before. Specifically, I did a diagram a couple sentences from the Bible one time because the sermon I was listening to, I just wasn't keeping up with it. And so I diagrammed the sentence instead. And that's really embarrassing to admit, but I love diagramming sentences. I love linguistics. I have not done translation work though. So Hallie is my like vicarious. I live through her to do translation work, I guess. What's the significance behind Hallie's red maiden belt, or at least the culture? It's not a huge, I was going to tie it into book 3, but book 3, it was more of a world thing instead of a personal thing. And I decided to hold that off for a different story, possibly. It's going to change more than likely if I ever write that. But essentially, it was going to be when the first settlers landed on Yalvara, everything was just like in chaos because they lost all their technology. Everything was just crazy. They didn't know what to do. And like there's these other people who are living on the planet and they're not as welcoming and to these new people, and there's lots of things going on. And so with this chaos, they needed some way to tell the difference between, hey, who is available for marriage and who isn't. And I was kind of thinking about wedding rings, and like if you wear a wedding ring or an engagement ring, like that's obviously a signal like, hey, you're married. And so I was like, what does that look like in this culture here? And so I thought red and green was just like an interesting thing. I also saw someone in a steampunk type outfit tie a red scarf around it. And I was like, that's a great idea too. So all that kind of melded together. I don't know if I'm going to keep that backstory if I ever write the other story, but I think that'd be really cool to explore a little more, which is why I'm more vague on it in this series. It is important, but it was more a world thing instead of like a personal thing. And so I decided to nix it for book 3, but maybe I'll come back to it. Odyssey, why did I decide to make Homer's Odyssey a big role? I was actually teaching at the time. I was teaching 8th grade language arts, and we were teaching the Odyssey, and I love the Odyssey so much. And so a lot of this book was kind of more of a retelling of the Odyssey. You have, the heroes who have flaws, they go on a journey and they learn something, and they're literally on some adventure. It doesn't take Case and Hallie 20 years, possibly. I don't want to spell anything too big. But I wanted to have some very specific Odyssey references. One, Case and Hallie, that's their favorite story. It's one of my favorite stories too. But there's a couple of the events or obstacles that they face on Tassiva that are specifically directly inspired by the Odyssey. I had to cut one of them when I was revising. Specifically, that was more of an on the nose type deal. But the other ones are kind of based on the Odyssey there, and things that Odysseus faced. So I love it. I kind of miss teaching it, to be honest, because it was so fun and the kids really, really liked it. I think it's because I really liked it, so I was like really into it. I did not know how the series was going to end when I started writing it. I am a discovery writer. I had an idea in mind, but usually that changes. So book 1's ending that I originally had in mind is not the same as what I had planned. Book 2's ending is similar to what I was thinking, but there's things that are different. Book 3's kind of took me by surprise. I thought I knew how it was going to end. I thought I worked it out. I had several different endings in mind for book 3. But when I was actually writing those climactic scenes, a plot twist hit me in the face, and it was perfection. And I got emotional about it because I was like, oh my stars, I did not realize that is a perfect ending. And so I can't wait for you to read book 3. That's all I'll say there. I won't spoil anything else with that. But yeah, I'm so excited. How did you make a lady's bun? So fun fact, I can never remember how I spell it in the book. I always have to go and like search it in my Kindle to find out if I spell it I-E-S with an apostrophe. I can't remember. I didn't look for this question here, but we're going to go with this. The one with the braid, that's originally what was in my Pinterest board actually. And then I wanted it to be a bun and kind of be a thing where it's a ladies bun because I love Anna Green Gables, and it's a big thing when you get older that you can wear your hair in like a bun. as like a lady, you're a woman now. And so I wanted that kind of aspect to add that old timey kind of rustic feel to my story. And so that's a lady's bun. It's basically just a bun in the back. You can braids decorate it. That's why I like the braids there. Hallie's is messy to kind of show her character. Like she doesn't care as much as that. She's more involved with like her reading and her studies and stuff like that. So she doesn't like paying attention to that, but she doesn't mind it. She still does it. But her mother is one of the things she and her mother, I tried to illustrate their differences is because like her mother's like, hey, it has to be this way. You have to do it this way. And she's like, but I want to do it my way. And so that's how you make a lady's bun. I don't have a tutorial on it, but you have some inspo pictures here. How did I come up with the stars rise upon you? That line, if you aren't there in book one, it's kind of toward the end. I wanted something that felt very realistic to the world, and because everyone's from like outer space, essentially they came to this planet, stars are very important to them, and especially Hallie and Case. And so I wanted that to be part of the culture that is there when you get to that part of the book. And so I came up with that and kind of what is a type of greeting you would use in order to have that in there. Let's see, Stars and Blast. So there is a card game that is played in chapter 9 called Stars and Blast. Is it a full game with rules or just world building? Technically, it's just world building. I did have some vague rules in mind. There is a card game in book 3 that's mentioned, I believe, in book 2. It's not Stars and Blast. It's the Hanged Man's Nebula. I believe it's in book 2. I don't think I mentioned it in book 1. I think I only mentioned it in book 2. Anyway, I actually have more rules for it in book 3, which I was kind of fun to do, to figure out the rules of it. And so I can't wait for you to read that part 2. There's so many good things in book 3. To what extent did Dune inspire me with my books? I had not seen Dune. I had someone, an early reader, read it and said, compared it to Dune. So that's why I use it a lot of my marketing, because it's an otherworldly thing. There's a lot of drama, a lot of politics. And so I do think that is similar to my book. I have watched Dune. I do want to read it. I have not read it yet. And I see the vague similarities. There's not a whole lot of similarities to it, but if you like that kind of science fantasy vibe, you might like my book. That's one reason I do include it in my marketing, is because it's more of a science fantasy, and science fantasy is hard to market because it is science fiction and fantasy. How did I choose what things would remain from First Earth? The last one, whatever ones were my favorites and which ones I was more familiar with too. Like I wouldn't choose Macbeth or something like that because I'm not familiar with Macbeth. Even though I did create a poster for it in high school and won an award for it. I'd not read it or seen the play, but I love Romeo and Juliet, which is why I use Shakespearean insults. I used to teach Romeo and Juliet as well as the Odyssey, which is why those are huge influences. I also taught little bits of Frankenstein, which book 2 is kind of very, very, very loosely inspired by. And book 3 is, I've already revealed this in an Instagram post a while ago, but it's very loosely inspired by King Arthur. And I love the King Arthur myth. That is one of my favorite legends of all time. And so I really wanted to bring some of those elements in for book 3 for sure. So basically my favorite books, maybe my books. No, that'd be too, that's like a, that would be, it's like glitch in the Matrix if my books are like on First Earth, because I don't know. Anyway, sorry, that's too deep. What is my favorite scene from all 3 books? I think you mean from each book, possibly. I'm going to do it that way. My book 1 favorite scene is I remember where it is in the book. I don't think it's in the first 15 chapters, but it's pretty close to the first 15 chapters. It's a scene where Case and Hallie are kind of around a fire, and they have the first like real moment of like actually talking to each other. And so that's my favorite scene in book 1. And also a scene at the very end is one of my other favorites, but that's a spoiler. Book 2, there is a Case and Hallie scene that is heavily inspired by an Anastasia, one of my favorite Anastasia scenes. That's my favorite in that one. And I also like chapter 33 in book 2. That's one of my favorites. Really like the end half of book 2 is my favorite. From book 3, I have several favorite scenes. I'm not going to say them because I spoiled them, but my favorite scene in the whole series is probably in book 3 for reasons. Did you have any difficulties writing a Victorian Edwardian time period with the advanced technology? And if so, what were they? And how did you overcome them? I didn't really have a whole lot of issues because it was more fantasy. So if I did run into something, I either researched it and I was like, okay, that helps like the corset stuff. I had to research some corset stuff. But I could make it up. Because I was like, well, I always try to find like a reason. What is the reason behind it? Not just like, hey, I'm going to use this like magic. There's a wizard. He fixed it. I wanted to have a reason why this technology was there, what the reason they were using it at this point. So like the reason electricity is just not coming into play is electricity was there the whole time, but they don't have the same other resources. So like zeprium is very important, and that was the main metal. They have a couple of the other metals, but zeprium is kind of the main thing they could have used, and they didn't discover that till later on. And there are some story reasons why the just not coming into play. So I was able to use story explanations for anything that I had trouble with that. What are my favorite types of scenes to write? Emotional scenes, anything that's super emotional, I love to write them. Whether it's super sad, super happy, I love them. I don't really enjoy heavy action scenes just because I feel like you're having to focus on the objective things. You add a little bit of emotion to them as you write, because that makes it, flow, and it makes it, in character and stuff like that. But I find I really enjoy looking into those emotions, and so those are really emotional hitting scenes I really enjoy writing. What made me want to start writing? That would definitely be, I've always been a reader and I always wanted to write books. And that's a lot of people's answer. I know that, but it is true. I told my last principal that at the school I worked at when I was interviewing for the job, I told her, she's like, well, what do you want to do outside teaching? And I was like, my dream is to have my book on a shelf in Barnes & Noble. That's my dream. And hey, I got the job, so it worked. But yeah, it's pretty much been my dream for a very, very long time. What made you choose a futuristic setting with ties to an old civilization? Was always set in this time frame. It was originally a space opera set in the far future, but I decided to put it on one planet and tie in some first Earth stuff. And so I really like Regency romance and stuff like that. I combined it all and made it into my favorite things. And so it was really fun to also reference things that we understand today, like Shakespeare and the Odyssey and stuff like that, in a fantasy setting, and it makes sense. And so that was really fun. That's why I chose to do it that way. There wasn't really maybe a conscious decision in that. It's just something I just decided to do. If you haven't noticed, I'm more of a mood writer and mood reader for sure. I kind of do what feels best. What is your favorite aspect of world building and lore? I don't know. I don't have a favorite aspect. It probably would be, if I have to choose, the fact that I have a lot of first Earth stuff in my books, that I was able to reference things that we know and like love today, but it's like old timey, it's like ancient. And so that was kind of fun. I would say that's probably my favorite world building, possibly. And I like the history of things that you get into deeper in book 3. To be cryptic. After book 3, do you know what you'll be working on? Do we have any hints? Yes and no. I'm a mood writer, and so I don't know exactly what I'll be working on, but I have several ideas. I have a lot of ideas of things to write within the Gate Chronicles world. There's a couple characters that you'll meet in this book that I would like to do some side kind of like spin-off series with. I also want to write other places in the world. Like Tev Rubica, I don't deal with a lot in this series, but they have such a rich history. And I have like 3 or 4 stories I would love to write there. So I might go there next. I also want to write some cozy kind of fantasy, but I think I might base it in the Gate Chronicles world. I'm still kind of waffling in between that. Kind of want to write a standalone because I've written a series, but also I love writing series. The payoff has been fantastic, difficult, but fantastic. So I don't know what it'll end up being, but I have so many ideas, so many ideas. And one thing I like to do is I like to have several different projects to work on at once. So I have one in the brainstorming, one in the drafting, one in the revising phase. So I would like to go back to that. I haven't been able to do that since I published book 1, because I've been trying to get books 2 and books 3 done. So I would like to go back to that because that's how I work best. But we'll see. We'll see. Have you listened to Epic the Musical? I have not. I have heard some songs from it, mainly from TikTok and Instagram. I just haven't had time to actually sit down and like listen to it. I do think Case and Hallie would enjoy it. I think they would be a little snotty at first, like how dare you ruin some like classic literature by like adding, a musical to it. But I think they would like that would be their first thought, and then they would love it. So I think they would probably sing it. Case would mess up the words on purpose to annoy Hallie. I think that's how it would go. Let's see. Since you compared book 1 to Rogue One a lot, who is your favorite member of that crew? I believe this might be the last question. K2 is one of my favorites. I do love Cassian. I love pretty much everyone on the crew. I think they're both all fantastic for multiple different reasons. But K2 is probably my favorite for the humor factor, and like his death, I'm sorry if I'm spoiling it, but it's been out for like 10 years, was so sad. I don't know why. It was a robot and it was so sad, but it got me. I do really like Jen, so I actually have a Jen costume, or I guess cosplay, but costume I wear most Halloweens because that's my favorite Disney Star Wars, and I love her character. Yeah, I just really, really enjoyed it. It's such a good movie. Oh, and so I need to watch Andor. I understand that, but I just haven't, and here we are. But I believe that's all the question. I think that was the last one. Yes, it was. So I'm sorry, I've been looking over here to an Instagram. I have 2 screens here. I don't think anyone asked any more questions, but we had so many people join and everything, which is awesome. That makes me so happy. If you haven't joined my broadcast channel here on Instagram or my newsletter, I usually update those people first. And I've been asking my hover crews, my broadcast channel, some like decisions on when to market things. I might bring some other things in for them to vote on. But the physical pre-orders for book 3 will be up soon. I'm waiting on my physical proof copy right now. Oops, I keep bumping that. So I'm super excited about that. And I'll hopefully have that up soon. I'm trying my best to make sure everything looks nice and I can get those pre-orders up. But if you haven't pre-ordered your ebook and you would like to order the ebook, you can find that on Amazon or at the link in my bio. You can sign up for my newsletter at my website there at www.allieernest.com. And if you want to submit a question beforehand, you can definitely join my Discord, which is also in my bio, and join us for the read along. It's so fun. We're going to be doing some prizes at the end of each read along. Book box specifically, everyone also gets a digital reward if you join and you participate. So thank you so much to everyone who is here and everyone in my Discord and everyone watching this. You guys are awesome for 1, watching, 2, asking questions. I loved answering them. And I will see you guys again on August 24th. I don't know the time yet. My guess is 4 p.m. again. If that works for everybody, I will ask my Discord channel what time works best for them. And this is the one that was 4 p.m. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for coming. And I see some comments coming in. And hi, everybody. Oh, it's been great. Oh, look. I know I can't point you out, but I see my sister's watching. So hi, sister. And I will talk to you guys later. Have a wonderful rest of your night. And let's get this turned.